Greetings and welcome to the Southside Help Center show. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. This is a live call-in show, so if you have any questions about anything that we're talking about, please do give us a call here at the station. Our number here is 312-738-1060, and we got Shauna Mitchell over there on the phones, and she is absolutely phenomenal. So if you would like to ask any questions about the conversation that we're going to talk about today, please do give us a call here at the station. This is live call-in 312-738-1060, and this is the Southside Help Center show, so thank you for tuning in. We want to make sure that we get all of our basic stuff covered because we have a phenomenal guest with us today, and this is Mr. Charles Nelson. I'm going to allow him to introduce himself and tell you his title. But what we do at the Southside Help Center is we do a multiple of programs, and what we do each week over the 13-week cycle is bring you a program each week so that we can kind of highlight and talk about what those programs actually contribute to the community. And last week we were talking about our youth programs, before that our safety counts program. So if any of those programs you would like more information about, call us at the agency, and that number is 773-445-5445. Our condom distribution program, we want to make sure that people know that we're part of the project, the condom distribution project. And what that is, if you're an agency or if you're a community mom and pop or what have you, and you would like to be a part of the program, and the only thing that is that would mean you would let us know. We would log you in as a community partners. We will provide you with condoms, and people in your community or in your general vicinity could come in and get free condoms. The condom distribution program is a phenomenal program. I see on a regular basis when we stop at get gas and so forth, people are constantly purchasing condoms, so people are actually using condoms, and we want people to know the importance of condoms and how effective condoms are. Again, the only safe sex is no sex, no drugs, no problem. Everything is safer sex. So we're talking about risk and risk reduction, and condoms are very good at reducing risk for HIV and other STDs. So if you want to be a part of that program, call us at the agency. This week we're going to be talking about Love Fest and a number of other things. We also got a couple of topics of discussion that we really would like to touch bases on, but I'm not going to get into it. I'm going to introduce my guest, Mr. Charles Nelson. Mr. Nelson, if you can tell them your title, your programs, and we're going to get started with you right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
No problem.
For everybody out there, welcome. I'm Charles Nelson. I'm the project director for Southside Help Center MSM project, Men Who Have Sex with Men project. And this project has been around for over 11 years at Southside Help Center. And what we do at this project, we are a comprehensive program to make sure that we educate men who have sex with men how not to put themselves at risk. We do prevention case management. We do HIV testing. We do outreach to the community. And we also do a counseling program which talks to men about risk behaviors and how to lower their risk individually, one-on-one counseling. And those are the programs that we have at Southside Help Center for the MSM project. These are great programs. I offer everyone to call if you need information, you need condoms, you want to get tested. Please call us. We have we have a main office which is on Halstead, 104th and Halstead, but my office is located in Hyde Park at 1525 East 55th Street, in the Hyde Park neighborhood on 55th and Lake Park.
And again, this program that Charles runs is a phenomenal program, and the reason we're talking about it today is because there's been some concerns dealing with our young MSMs, and we'll keep using the acronym MSM, and it means men who have sex with men. So that just means there are a lot of our young MSMs who are coming up HIV positive, and we want to be able to talk about why are they coming up positive, and what are we doing in terms of prevention, and what they can actually do to reduce that risk. So if something is going on, we're going to need to talk about it because a lot of our young MSMs are becoming impacted with HIV or infected with HIV, and we need to know why. We need to know what we can do to stop this trend down.
Exactly. Today we want to talk about, Mr. Cherry, is about HIV testing, and is that a way to limit HIV infection among gay men or men who have sex with men, MSMs. We know that the numbers rising in the MSM community is very high. For those out there in the audience who don't know, when you think of the area of Chicago, if you think of it as a ball, if you cut that ball in half of that ball would take up the percentage of men who, if we put everyone who's HIV positive in that ball, half of that ball would cover African American men who are living with HIV today.
Wow. And I always say this about HIV infection and people who are impacted. And I say that we're all affected. If not infected, we're all affected. And that's the thing that we have to look at when we start looking at the bigger picture concerning HIV positivity rates and so forth. It affects us all as a whole. So that's why when we start talking about community and what needs to happen within our communities, these are our sons and daughters, and this is what people need to understand, and we love them unconditionally. So that simply means that we have to look at the whole ball. We can't just look at part of the ball. So we're talking about heterosexual, we're talking about MSMs, we're talking about lesbian, LB, whatever, LBGT, and all of these different things. We're looking at HIV and how it's affecting us as a people, and what we can do to bring that risk down, bring that number down. It don't matter what part of the community you live in. It don't matter. And again, it's not who you are, what you do that's putting you at risk. We're looking at everybody and what we can do to bring those rates down. And testing, as Mr. Nelson mentioned, is testing important? Go ahead, I'll let you.
Testing is important because until someone knows their HIV status, they really don't know if they're exposing someone else to HIV.
Yeah, and
go ahead.
I was going to say, sometimes we still have people that are very afraid of testing.
Yes.
But early detection, man, is key. One of the reasons early detection is so important, definitely so you won't continue to spread the disease, but also so that you can get the necessary care. Care is so vital and very important that people, when they get diagnosed with HIV, that they get directly into care, that they immediately form a relationship with a healthcare provider. Why is that so important? Because if an individual needs to get medication or whatever it is that needs to happen, it can happen right away. And it's very important that people get tested. Go ahead, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I would just say also, Mr. Cherry, that it's also important because the quicker someone knows their HIV status and they can get into care, the longer their lifespan would be. And also there are studies out now that men and women who are on HIV medication, they are likely to expose someone else to HIV if they're on the medication. So then there's a two-win situation there. Okay. You won't be exposing someone else, and then you also live a longer, healthier life.
Right, because one of the things that people still ask, or the question they still ask, is they talk about magic and why is magic remaining so healthy. And we just was at a conference down in Atlanta at CDC, and one of the studies that they've been talking about is dealing with medication and how much longer people are able to live with HIV meds, and it's so important that people know that they need the meds so that they can get the necessary regimen so that they can. And they talk about an individual infected at 25. Life expectancy for African American men at that point is 52. You know, and that's just what's expected. So it's very important that people understand what that means. Same thing with women who may be infected at 25 and their life expectancy increases to 57. So HIV medication is very important that people understand when if they are impacted or infected with HIV, that they get the necessary medication, because now we're talking about just longevity and living and dying of old age, which we all would like to do. So it's very important that people know their status, and that's what testing offers, is knowing your status one way or the other. And the other thing that we talked about earlier was negative statuses and what that means. You know, sometimes people get tested and they'll say, you know, I'm negative, but the behavior doesn't change. And that's what's important. Ms. Mitchell talked about how, you know, some of the people she deal with, that's their reaction, is they're very excited about getting a negative status, but they're not thinking or talking about the behaviors that may be putting them at risk or may be reducing their risk for HIV.
Exactly. If they're not changing behavior, Mr. Cherry, because you do testing, I do testing. I'm sure you've seen this many times. We test someone 1 month and they're negative. Test the next month, they're negative. 2 months down the line, they end up positive.
Yes.
Because they haven't changed behavior. And so we're here to have a conversation with you, an honest conversation about behavior change, how to change that behavior so that you know that it's not Russian roulette. You're not constantly out there doing the same thing and you're just lucky. It's really the fact that you might have exposed yourself at the time that we tested you. We just didn't know.
That's right. And again, testing is not prevention. And people get confused with that. You know, they think because they got tested and detected negative, they're preventing something, and that's not prevention. Prevention is your behavior. What are you going to do in terms of the reduction of partners, being in a monogamous relationship in terms of abstinence. What does that truly mean? And again, early intervention, dealing with our youth, our young people, and providing them with the necessary information. Not only that, alternative programming, alternative behaviors, masturbation, mutual masturbation, all of these different things play a part in behavior. And oftentimes, since sex has been a taboo for so long, we don't want to talk about it. Even still, as adults, when we get ready to do it, it needs to be night, or it needs to be dark, or we want the room as dark as possible, because it's been a taboo for so many years. And the reality of it is we do need to turn on lights and talk about behavior and what needs to happen at this point, as well as prevention, and how does that affect me, and what truly is prevention in my world. Because prevention in yours may not be the same. So we need to see these pictures across the board in terms of HIV prevention and education, and what does that look like across the board, heterosexually, homosexually, however, whatever. It needs to look the same, or it needs to look, you need to know what that looks like for you.
Yeah, we need to talk about, since we're talking about MSMs today, not to exclude anyone else, but since we're talking about MSM, having an honest conversation about what prevention looks like for men who have sex with men. And what are the sexual risks that men put themselves at higher risk? Why are the numbers higher for men who have sex with men? It could be the sexual behavior. And if it's all about just changing those behavior so that they won't put themselves at risk, and it wouldn't happen. I know there's some young men who have come through our office who believe in relationships. They believe in dating. But we know as young men, young women, relationships don't last that long. So you go from one relationship, it lasts a month, you go to another one, it lasts another month, and you're monogamous in those relationships. But in between those relationships, you're not being tested, and you don't know if if your partner is being monogamous, even though you're being monogamous. So you're taking a chance that person is exposing you to HIV, and then you're exposing the next partner you have to HIV.
Right. And I think one of the things that we get confused with is the difference between a relationship and a sexship. And if you have a different partner monthly, that is a sexship. That is not a relationship. If you're changing partners every 6 months, that is not a relationship. That is a sexship. Because relationships are built on foundation. And that's how the longevity comes into play, because you're able to explore an individual's... we always talk about 90 days, and why do... jobs give you 90 days, because most of the time they say within 90 days you will reveal your true self.
Your true self, yeah.
And that's so important, and through research and years of it, that has proven to be so. And at one time I had this guy work for me, and I tell you the story, he was not a very good worker. And I allowed my emotions to play a part. I said, well, I'm going to just give him a little more time. And somebody told me that wasn't going to change, in another 30 days based on his previous 90-day performance. And I had to take a look at that. So the same thing needs, in my opinion, let me just say this is my opinion, and this is a formula for, especially for a lot of us who, in terms of relationships and sexships, in terms of foundation, give it 90 days where you have an opportunity to talk about history, to talk about testing, to talk about getting tested, to talk about behaviors and so forth, and then look at maybe doing something down the line. I mean, and for reality, for a lot of people, that ain't it. So, and maybe that's why so oftentimes our relationships never develop, and they do become sex ships, and sex ships just don't last. Same thing happens with teen pregnancy and so forth.
Exactly. But I want to add one other component for the LGBT community, especially for men who have sex with men. That time span is even shorter, because if you're a part of the MSM community, for those out there in the audience, you know that we say that when someone's been in a relationship for a year, well, that's 10 years in gay life. Why do we have to have gay life time span that is so much different? A year is just a year. It doesn't mean 10 years. You're still getting to know that person within a year. 6 months. It's not 5 years. You know, it's really just 6 months. So in that relationship, you are still getting to know that person. You're fortunate enough that you're able to expand that relationship to 6 months to a year. But it's really investing in that relationship, knowing that you want something beyond that relationship. And this is one of the things that we talk about in the workshops that we do with the MSMs that come through our program, about building foundation and relationship, commitment, monogamy, responsibility, not only to yourself but also to the people you have sex with.
Absolutely. Today we're talking about gay pride. We're also talking about cultural diversity. So if you have any questions for us and Mr. Nelson, we have an expert, and I tell y'all all the time, when you get an expert, you take advantage of them. We have an expert, Mr. Charles Nelson, who have been doing HIV prevention and education for just forever. He's been working with the Center for approximately 11 years, but prior to that, Mr. Nelson has been fighting for gay rights. He has been just invaluable as a part of the gay community. So he is an expert on a lot of things. If you have any questions, this is a live call-in show. Give us a call here at the station. The number is 312-738-1060. If you have any questions or comments for Mr. Nelson, please do give us a call, 738-1060. So give us a call if you have any questions. Also, you got a chart over here. I want to talk about that for a minute, but you also got an event. We want to make sure we put this up there. I'm going to put it on our overhead really quickly. And you can talk about it as it's up there, Charles.
Yeah, Carnival of Love. Since we're talking about testing and we're talking about men who have sex with men, this is the annual event that is produced by a very phenomenal organization, one of its kind in this nation, Chicago Black Gay Men Caucus. This program started over 7 years ago.
Okay.
Out of the need to address HIV in our community in Chicago. Members of our community, like myself, came together, said that we need to do something, and the Chicago Black Gay Men Caucus was formed.
Okay.
This is the annual event that we do every year. We work with the Chicago Department of Public Health, and we find sponsors. And at Jackson Park, which is located in the south side of Chicago, in an area where a lot of men who have sex with men may go to congregate, we have a festival out there. And this year, our theme is Carnival of Love.
Okay.
We're going to have a very carnival theme.
Okay.
We want to have we're going to have a stage, and one of our hosts on the stage is going to be somebody who's very well known in the MSM community, Miss Ruffin Stuff, who's an announcer, MC. We're going to have DJs playing music. We're going to also have several other people there to talk to the community about their organizations. So we will have a community resource center there.
Okay.
We're going to have Bidwest going on.
Okay.
And we're going to have volleyball tournament, and we're also going to have a mini competition for the ball community, because we know a lot of our young men and women are very involved in the ball community. So we're going to have a display of what the ball community is about also there.
Okay, well, there's two questions I got for you I want to ask. One is about the Black Gay Men Caucus. When was it founded? And again, why was it founded? And because that's so very important that people know who's working for them and how that began, you know, and it was with concerned individuals. So talk about that first, and then we'll go back to the ball community.
Well, approximately 8 years ago, I was at a conference in Atlanta, along with a lot of other black gay men who were there to talk about the rising rate of HIV among black MSM.
Okay.
At that conference, it was given to us the challenge to come back to our community to do something. I came back and spoke with a colleague of mine, Laura Branch, who was at that time working in the Chicago Department of Public Health, and said, you know, we should do something. Laura Branch, being a phenomenal woman that she is, took up the leadership to ask the Chicago Department of Health to fund this project.
Okay.
And out of that grew the Chicago Black Gay Men Caucus. I've been a member since its conception.
Okay.
I think it's a great organization. We are still growing, and we are always looking for new members to bring new ideas to our organization, how to reach our brothers in the community, and to have conversations around relationships, conversations around HIV, conversations around testing, and also also conversations about how we can get to the day that we don't have to worry about HIV.
Absolutely, because it is 100% preventable. Let me say that again. HIV is 100% preventable. And again, Southside Health Center been in existence. Next year will be our 25th year. It'll be our 25th anniversary, and we were founded by Miss Betty Smith. And what she did was she immediately went and began to deal with the clergy. So we were talking about our churches and how we can do HIV prevention. And from that, this agency evolved, and Southside Health Center does a number of different things, a plethora of services, and this is just one component of it. And as you can see, Mr. Nelson has done phenomenal work, and it's just not that little in a ball in a box type of work. This is work that's being done on a national scale. So it's so very important that if you know someone or if you yourself would like more information about this and how you can get involved, give us a call here at the station. The Carnival of Love, which will take place Sunday, August the 29th, August the 28th.
28th, yes.
August the 28th, which is Sunday coming.
This coming
Sunday.
Yes.
And it'll be going on 63rd at Jackson Park, and it'll be from 12 until 8. So come out. It'll be some testing going on. It'll be some education going on. They're talking about bid whist. I really don't know that they can play bid whist. And when I say they, I'm talking about, I don't really think nobody can play better than me. You know, I happen to be a school teacher and a whistlologist. So I just thought I'd throw that out there for Mr. Nelson.
Mr. Cherry, I would invite you to come out to play with some of the brothers out there.
Yeah.
And we also have a prize for the best bid whist player.
Well, see, now they done tricked me because I like tokens. So, so there's going to be a lot of stuff going on out there. So we're talking about come out there and have a great time, and at the same time receive a wealth of information. And this is what we do at the Southside Health Center. We provide programs for the community, and we've been doing it for 25 years. I've seen them come and go. Southside Health Center is still here because these programs are dynamic, and not only are they dynamic, the community is what makes these programs work. So as a part of the community, take advantage of any services that we have. We're talking about our youth programs. We have after-school programs where the kids are doing homework. I talked about before. As parents, you may have been out of school for 10, 15, 20 years. And these young people, the stuff they bring home now, we be looking at it like, are you serious? You know, we talked about how iPod and iPads are part of, on the list. You know, they get this big list that they send out now. It used to be pencil and paper. Now they got this like really long list of stuff that they send out for our kids for us to get for them to start school. Right. iPods and iPads and all of that stuff is on there. And the reason I'm saying this is because in those after school programs, we have people qualified to assist your kids in getting that work done. So it's important that you know all of the services that we offer. We also offer a number of case management services for HIV positive people. So if you know anybody that fits the criteria, would like assistance with these programs, give us a call. Parents, if you have youth and you're trying to figure out what you're going to do with them after school, we're located 10420 South Halsted. Come in. Now don't just give us a call. Come in. Check out the facility, check out those going to be providing the services. I say it all the time. It's very important, and then we always want something, but we definitely have to be a part of what it is that we want. So I say parents, if you got kids, they need some place to be after school. We have a program. They do homework. They do a lot of stuff. It's not just homework, but it gives you a peace of mind while you're at work, and then you can pick them up afterwards, but you know that they're getting the necessary help that they need by qualified individuals. I can't help nobody with homework. I ain't confused about that. So if you come there and see me helping your kid do his homework, you must know your kid will not be passing. So my point is there's qualified people there to help them do that. So all kind of services Southside Health Center has been providing for over 25 years, and this is just one component that I find fascinating and phenomenal, and Mr. Nelson has been a part of it, and that's the Black Gay Men Caucus. Go ahead.
You had a second question.
Yeah, the other question was, I've heard the term ball in the ball community on a few occasions, but you know, I've only come to my own conclusion as to what I think that is. So now we have a professional here to just kind of guide us through what that actually is and what it means, and who can actually benefit from it, and where they can find these activities.
Well, the ball community, or the ball, has a very long, rich history. It started actually out of New York from the need of gay men and women and mostly African American Latino men and women who felt like they had no way to move up in the industry of what New York was in the fashion industry, modeling, designing, TV, radio, because as you know, until in our generation, we didn't see people like us, in the media, and to see black gay men and women, you saw even less of that. So this was a way for them to express their creativity. So the ball community started in New York, in the Village, where young men and women who worked in the fashion district would get together. They would design outfits, and they would do their own runways. They would have their own moderators. They would have their own public relation people to promote them, and out of that became this art that is called the ball, which is a style of performance, creativity, and everything. They have categories about who has the best face, who can walk the catwalk the best. And I don't dare claim to be a real expert on the ball community, but I remember when the ball community started. And so we do honor that history of the LGBT community, because that's part of our history. Like a lot of things in our history that everyone benefits from. Because if you know about a lot of our models and a lot of our performers today, if they didn't know someone in the ball community, they wouldn't know how to walk the catwalk. They wouldn't know how to perform the way they do if they didn't have someone in the LGBT community show them how to put makeup on. How to show their face, and that's a thing that they would have in the ball community. Madonna was one of the first, I believe one of the first, I could be wrong, one of the first who really made money off the ball community, because she made a record called Vogue, which was a style of performance that they would do at the ball, and it made her rich.
Very. They still voguing to this day.
She did bring some of the legends of that ball community to her performance, but it was still a lot that was left behind. A lot of the ball communities are considered houses, and most of the houses are named after designers. So if you're the ball of, I don't even want to think of the name of a house, but if you're the ball of some house, it's related to that designer, and every house has a mother or father. The mother usually makes sure that the children, which are the people who participate in that house, is overseen, and the father makes sure that resources come into the house.
Very, very, very interesting. And that's what it's all about. I noticed also you had a chart over there. I wanted to make sure we got as much information, because a lot of history is so very important, so that people know how things started, people know how to become involved in these different activities and events. Is very important, and that's how we continue them. But also we want to make sure that we continue to talk about HIV and its prevention. We continue to talk about what we can do to bring down the risk of contracting or transmitting HIV. So it's very important that we continue on. Let me take a look. You want me to put that up there and you can talk about it a little bit? And then that might make it a little simpler for you. This is one of the charts. Let's put it over on the overhead. And he mentioned, and then you can talk about it, Charles, a little bit, and what these numbers mean.
Yeah, this is, if you broke this down, this is a pie chart. And in this chart, we see that it is broken down by percentages of people who are living with HIV, predominantly in, let's say, Chicago area. This is something that was produced by the CDC, and is giving a more national coverage. But if we were to say that this was Chicago, and you look at the ball again, you see where it says 50% of the ball is MSM.
Gotcha.
You see where it says 25% of the ball is heterosexual female. 11% is heterosexual male. 4% is IDU female. 6% is IDU male. 2% is MSM IDU. Now, looking at that chart, we see that the majority of people living with HIV are men who have sex with men. Now, if we were to use another chart and broke that down,
put that on there.
we see here that we have broken down by male to female. And if you look at the numbers of black, Hispanic, and white, the largest numbers are black. when it comes to male. And if you look at the ratios of women, black, Hispanic, and white, black women are the largest of female. But still, in the overall, MSMs are the largest number. Black women are the largest of females.
Absolutely, and that's why we've been talking about HIV for many years, and it's so very important in the African American community. You can say what you want to say. Our people are getting infected. Our people it's just so important that we continue this fight. It's so important that the light continues to shine on HIV and HIV prevention. Just because we have medicines now that allow people to live longer, it's so important that people understand you don't want to put restrictions on yourself. So it's so important that you get the necessary testing. It's so important that people look at the behaviors that they're practicing and change it, and just look at what you can do. And we always talk about, I'm gonna let you we always talk about, once you acquire a particular behavior, be it bad or good, it's easy to say change it. It's easy to say something, to do something different, but it's very difficult to actually do it.
Right.
And that's why we look at, sometimes we don't do leaps and bounds. Sometimes we have to go that little bit at a time.
Yeah, exactly.
A little bit at a time, little bit at a time. And that's why we talk about stages of change and what that actually means when people are in the contemplation, pre-contemplation, and action, and maintenance, and how does that really look? Because it's easy for us to sit up and say do something concerning our health, but it's very important that people look at what they can realistically do and start there.
Think of change as taking a walk. You to put one foot at a time in front of the other.
That's right.
And you if you fall, don't beat yourself up and say that you can't ever do it.
That's right.
You just pick yourself up and keep doing.
And keep on going.
Keep on going. I also want to make a comment about one of the other things that you said, Mr. Cherry, as far as prevention, where we really need to one of the programs that we have at our agency is for young men. We have a program called Many Men, Many Voice, and at this program is really a wonderful intervention.
Hold that thought, because we're going to talk about Many Men, Many Voices, but we got a caller. Let's get this caller, and then we'll come back to Many Men, Many Voices.
Okay.
Caller, you're on the air.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
My question is, where are the statistics coming from, the numbers? Because every time I hear there's something about HIV and AIDS, it seems like black folks are always among the highest. And I find that hard to believe. And I don't see an age group. You said black women are the highest among the women. And I was just wondering, where do you guys get these numbers from? How are the ratings? Because that's odd. It seems like we're always on top. Not to say that this is negative, but every time there's a negative connotation, there's always black folks on top. And we're not a community, we're a population. You see, and that saddens me. There's never no unification. So I was just, that's my question, actually. Where are the numbers coming from? What age groups? How do you guys get the numbers? Where's the comparison? Because what if a lot of white folks aren't getting tested?
Okay.
Well, the numbers that we get are from the Center of Disease and Control. All test results go, well, let's say we did a test here, it goes to the Chicago Department of Public Health, and then that information is really relayed onto the Center of Disease. They compile all test results that we have, and they give that information back out every 2 to 3 years. Every 2 to 3 years. And so that is where most of the information comes from. I will say that in the communities of color, there's a larger campaign for it, because when we test in other communities, we don't find the HIV rate as high as we have in communities of color.
Right. Because and again, just to make it simple, is what happens once we do a test at the center, they send it to the city of Chicago. The city of Chicago send it to the Centers for Disease Control. And again, these rates are based on people tested across the board, and there's testing going on across the country. It's not just here, but those results come from everywhere around the country. When they get back, this is what we're seeing in terms of trend. And even when we talk about through the city of Chicago, based on our own experience, this is the numbers. This is how we're actually getting that information. But most of our information comes from a compiled database at the Centers for Disease Control, which is where everybody's information go throughout the entire country. And that's where those numbers are coming from.
And to the young lady who called in, I want to say that one of the problems, I believe, is that when HIV first impacted our civilization, it was not considered a black disease.
Right.
So we're really behind the ball of being educated and getting the proper information about how not to put ourselves at risk and changing behavior. I believe that our counterparts realized that this was impacting the community and the population, so they aggressively sought out more resources. There's always campaigns around prevention, changing behavior, and so the numbers in that community dropped, while the numbers in our community kept rising.
Right, because at one time it was known as the white gay man disease.
The white gay man disease.
Yes, and from that, like I say, they got the information, and those numbers started dropping, but ours started rising. So it's important that we kind of do the same thing in terms of rallying around this disease and how it's affecting us as a whole. And here's something else you can go. The city of Chicago has a database as well. And what happens is all of the communities who are doing HIV testing in the city of Chicago report that information to the Chicago Department of Public Health, and they compile that data. And you can pull that up, and it'll show you in terms of the rates of infection amongst the people in the city of Chicago who have been tested. And it also breaks it down in age in terms of 25 to 45 in terms of young MSMs, and so it would give you a specific breakdown. But I promise you, on the next show, we'll bring that just in case you don't have an opportunity. Yes. We'll make sure that we have it for you.
I can make sure we get that the next show. And the numbers, even though I don't have the breakdown of ages here, but we do know that the largest numbers of HIV infection today are for young men under the age of 24, above the age of 15. Are the largest numbers of HIV infection in the city of Chicago today.
Wow. Okay, caller, you on the air?
Hello, hi, how are you?
Good.
Hi, how are you?
Okay, you know what? I really love the topic, and it's really interesting. And I also wanted to state that the higher population is among our high schools. Yeah, you know what? I was at my Kingdom Hall a couple of months ago, and one of the brothers was speaking, and he was talking to the teenagers that was out in our audience, and he told them, he asked them to use protection if they were going to try, because it's really sad. It's really sad because the parents, I don't want to just specifically and say I'm just philosophically speaking, but I don't believe that the parents would talk to the kids. That's why I want to thank you guys for having this topic today, and thanks a lot.
Well, thank you very much. And one of the things that we have so much issue with is that, and this is something that parents can do, because we have such a hard time going into Chicago public schools talking about HIV prevention and education, STDs, and sexual health. And that's unbelievable to me, because so oftentimes, you can look at a group of our individuals, they're pregnant, they're having babies, and that tells you they're having unprotected sex. If you go in and talk about STDs, you'll look at a number of individuals who have, in fact, been infected with an STD of one sort or another, but yet they don't want to allow us to come in and talk about HIV prevention and education. And I say this all the time, and I had a parent say to me, that they were opposed to it, and I asked her, well, why does she feel like that? And she really couldn't come up with a solid answer. And I say this to say, a lot of times some parents, and I ain't saying that some parents do have that conversation with their kids. Some parents know how to have that conversation with their kids, and it's not the birds and the bees. We always talk about the birds and the bees, and that's the best we can do, but we need to go more in depth, not only about STD and HIV, but alternatives, and that's something that they don't talk about, is alternatives to sex. They want to say don't do it, but why not do it? Everybody else is doing it. What do I do in the replace of this? And what do I do to deal with the peer pressure that comes along with that? That's the stuff we have to talk about in the schools, and start early. What does that look like? Well, maybe we should, as parents, those of us who are concerned, come together and come up with curriculums that focus on real sex education, not nonsense, because I promise you, If they don't get that education somewhere, they will get it
They
somewhere.
get it somewhere. And I want to add to that, Mr. Cherry, that not only just sexual education, but comprehensive sexual education that would include the diversity of people, of our young people's orientation. Not just talking about heterosexual sex, but also talk about sex between same gender people.
Absolutely. And oftentimes we don't want to talk about reality. And this is reality. So let's talk about some reality and talk about how do we get into, become a part of that so that we can talk about early on what needs to happen in terms of alternatives, what needs to happen in terms of sexual responsibility, what that picture should look like, peer pressure, and how do you deal with that. And one of the things that I mentioned to her is sometimes when we present a situation or some circumstances to our young people so that when they come across that same situation or those same set of circumstances, at least they've seen something of a picture before. So now I know some of what I can do. I have an idea of how to deal with that situation. And that's what I told her. Sometimes we have to present them with the circumstances so that when they actually come into that particular situation, they've seen it before. And they know how to react or how to respond or what to say or what to do. And a lot of times as parents, we ain't got all of the answers. You may think you do. I am not confused as a parent. I don't have all of the answers. And a lot of times as parents, we have to come together and talk about it.
And we have to reach out to the experts who
Absolutely.
may have the answers. You know, research, find those answers, bring those information to the young people in our community, the young people at the church, and the young people at the schools. That information needs to come down to them. And by educating them as a group, they continually educate each other.
Yes.
They support each other. And we're not educating our sons and daughters and the young people in the schools, then they're constantly out there giving out wrong information and not supporting each other.
Yeah, and one of the things that I implore our parents to do when it's a sex education class going on at your school, and one of the things that we would like to with the CPS and so forth is when those particular type of interventions go on, that they inform parents, and so that parents can come and observe. One, for their own edification, because so many of us as parents simply do not know. And it's important so that if you know when you're able to learn with your children and you're getting the same information as your children is getting, then you can kind of look at the information and how you can further advance the process. So parents, and we say this again and again and again, advocate for these programs and then become a part of these programs, because when we talk about our children and their future, it is so very important that we be a part of that future, that we provide them with the information and that we get the information so that we can just carry that on.
And also so that all kinds of education that we give our youth, they can constantly feel comfortable enough to come to their parents and family members who they trust to get the right information. You know, I'm sure your sons, I know my nephews come and ask me anything. They know they can get the right answer from me. Having a place where they know they feel safe and comfortable to come and get that right information, whether it has to do with sex, money, education, career choices, whatever it is, we have to be there for our kids. So the kids are not coming home asking their parents for that information, you know, nowadays. So you have to be there. If you're involved in your kids in the school, you know that your kid wants to go to school to be a doctor, you know what classes he needs to take, right?
That's right.
If you know that your kid's planning to get married one day, he or she needs to know the steps of what to do to make sure that whatever their goals of marriage or their goals of relationship, however they identify it, the steps to get there and what to do to make sure they have a healthy life as they grow older.
Right. And one of the things that all of this relates to what we need to do as a whole, and I talk about how my kids would always think that I knew everything, but I prided myself. So anytime they no matter what the situation was, no matter how many of their friends they said, well, let me call my daddy. They felt like I had the answer. And one thing that I maintained with them was a 100% track record, because when I didn't know the answer, I made it my business to find the answer, to do the research so that I can give them some good information. And as parents, we need to be who they need to call, and that's so very important because if they listen to one another, they just give out all kind of bogus information on a regular basis.
Exactly.
So that was so important. Here's the other thing: no matter how good relationships are with parents, most of the time, and if it don't apply, let it fly. But I want to say 90-something% of the time, children don't come to us till after they've done it. You know, you may think that, it's all open, but it's not until after they've done something that they come to us, and we want them to come to us before. So as parents, we have to be open enough, whether it's sexuality, how I'm feeling emotionally. You got to be open enough as a parent that your children come to you first. And our job is unconditional. We can't. It's unconditional. We love our children unconditionally. It does not matter. So you have to create a relationship with them that they can come to you, be it about sexuality, be it about having sex, be it about whatever.
Yeah, and we also have a high rate of young men and women who are in domestic relationships that are very violent, and they are not coming to their parents saying that I'm in an abusive relationship. So in that relationship, also with that abuse, sex is also sometimes involved also. So if they're not comfortable enough to come to tell you that I've been in this relationship and I'm having sex and I'm being abused, then you won't ever know, and then you're not able to be there to help your child to get out of that situation.
Yeah, and we're changing gears a little bit, and that's okay, because what we're talking about, it deals with it across the board, and one of the things that we often talk about is domestic violence among youth, and how important that parents know that goes on, and what to identify as domestic violence, because people always think if they don't come home with a bruise or a mark that they're not being abused, but you have to look at what was said today. You have to look and see whether they were pushed today. You have to look and see whether they got choked today. Because it's all a cycle and it escalates. It may start out with the name, or it may start out with the word. And it may go from there to a push, and it may go from there to a choke, and it may go from there to a slap, a punch, so forth and so on. But it's a progression. So domestic violence among youth is very real. We do workshops around that at the center as well. And parents need to know, as well as young people need to know, what that looks like, so when they get involved in those type of relationships, they know what they look like. And that don't matter if it's same-sex relationship, if it's a heterosexual relationship, you need to know what domestic violence look like, and verbal abuse look like, spiritual abuse, that stuff, what that looks like. Parents, you need to know as well.
And I would like to add to that, and you just said it, Mr. Cherry, among same-sex relationship, physical violence is even higher among same-sex relationships.
It is.
And of course, that's because they don't feel comfortable enough to come to their parents and talk about the same-sex relationships. And the person who may be the leader in that violence in a relationship feel they can get away with it because they don't feel good about themselves in the first place. Because they have no one to tell them that it's okay to be in this relationship. You have support. You don't have to be violent. You don't have to be abusive to your partner.
Absolutely. So it's so very important. Today we're talking about MSMs. We're talking about gay pride, cultural diversity. One of the things Charles does is he have a number of different programs that he operates out of the office on 55th in Lake Park, out of this Hyde Park office. So it's important that if you know someone who in need of the services and can benefit from them, please contact us at the office. That's 773-445. 5445, that's the main office, or you can reach Charles at his extension, which is
773-701-4246, 773-701-4246.
4246. So if you would like to speak directly to Charles, please give him a call. And one of the things that we want to make sure that people know that it's an open door policy, and we want you to feel as comfortable as possible calling, talking about whatever it is your concerns may be, talking about getting tested, why it's important. If you think you've been exposed on one level or another, it's so important that you come in, that you get tested, that you talk about your issues and your concerns and how you feel. And Charles is very qualified, so we got us a professional here today. If you have any questions for Mr. Nelson, please feel free to call us here at the station. The number is 312-738-1060, and this is the Southside Help Center Show. And this is just one of the programs that we offer. We've been in existence for 25 years. Our 25th anniversary is next year. And it's important that the community continue to be a part of the program, and parents, it's important that you continue to be a part of it as well, dealing with our youth and opening up so that they can definitely come to you, and you are able to send them to us where they can get some professional individuals who will talk about what it is that's actually affecting or impacting our youth. So it's important. This stuff is really, really important, and come out on Sunday.
Please come
on out
Sunday.
to the Carnival of Love, and it's going to be Sunday the 28th, and it's going to be from 12 to 8, and it's going to be at Jackson Park. Come on out there and have a great time. It's very important that we continue to come together as a community and provide support across the board. It's just, I can't say enough when we talk about HIV prevention and education, and how many different criterias and how many different groups that affect, how many different cultures that affect and impact. And as African Americans, and I implore you, go to the city's site, go to the Centers for Disease Control, and get that information in as much of it as you can, and so we can make sure that we share it and we talk about testing. How do you get tested? Well, Charles, you can give Charles a call. We have an office in Hyde Park, where you can receive HIV testing, free HIV confidential testing. We have an office on 104th and Halsted, 10420 South Halsted, where you can come in and you can get tested. That office is functioning from 9 till 5, so you can come up there and you can get tested. Or if you have a community event going on, a health fair going on, if you have a community picnic or what have you, call us. We'll come out and provide free HIV testing. We'll bring our mobile unit out and we'll provide free HIV testing. So if you want to know how to get tested, call us. If you want us to come out, call us. We'll come out. We provide free testing. The service is absolutely free. If you have not been tested for HIV, please know your status. Please get tested. Charles, if there's anything you want to wrap it up with?
I definitely want to say that this coming Sunday, for all of my brothers out there who haven't been tested, young man, you have a young man who hasn't been tested, got a friend, we're giving out free HIV testing all day Sunday. Come out to this event. It's going to be fun. It's going to be very festive, and free testing. We also giving out, for every test, we're also giving out a raffle ticket to get your own iPad, if you like. So
they'll be raffling off an iPad.
We're raffling off an iPad. At the festival, along with other things that we're giving out. It's going to be really, really a fun event. It's going to be a beautiful Sunday. Come out and have fun with us at this event. Love Fest is every year. It's our annual event that we do every year. And this year we're doing the Carnival of Love, and we want to have a good time this year. So come out and support us. Come out, bring your friends. Come out and have some food. Bring your food. It's a wonderful, and Jackson Park is a beautiful park. The Chicago Park District has been very helpful to make sure that we do this event every year. This year our sponsors are Vertex, and they are one of our major sponsors. Chicago Department of Public Health is also one of our sponsors this year, and they support Chicago Black Gay Men Caucus for our annual event that we do every year.
Well, it's going to be a phenomenal event. So if you ain't doing nothing, come out on Sunday, the 28th, from 12 to 8. You will see me there. I'm going to come out and see if I can acquire that Bid Whist tournament. I'll bring a partner.
Too bad I can't play against you.
Well, it doesn't matter to me what victims or who I victimize. So if you think you up to the task, come on out the 28th to the Carnival of Love, and there's going to be a lot of things going on. We'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. We'd like to thank Mr. Charles Nelson for being our guest today. We will have Mr. Nelson back in one of our upcoming shows. We'd like to thank Ms. Shauna Mitchell, who has been handling the phones. We also would like to thank you, because you are who make us who we are.
Yes, and also September the 27th is National MSM testing. So we will probably be doing another event in September also.
Right, and then just look for some upcoming information and events, and we'll let you know when that is. So we'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. Until we see you again, we bid you peace.